Hey, folks, today is Wednesday, August 6, 2025. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live from the Black Star Network. I am here in Cleveland for the 50th anniversary convention of the National Association of Black Journalists. On today's show, the Texas Democrats, there's a bomb scare today at the hotel they're staying at in Chicago. They continue the fight against racist gerrymandering in Texas. We'll talk with the chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, Ron Reynolds. Also on today's show, it is the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. We'll talk to Ambassador Andrew Young. He was there in Selma on that day, Bloody Sunday, when black folks were severely beaten, again, trying to get the right to vote. A shocking story out of South Carolina where a couple of young teens go swimming. They end up dying after being exposed to a rare brain-eating amoeba in a lake there. We'll talk with the family there as well. Plus, the July jobs report comes out. Donald Trump is so pissed off he fires the person over the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Folks, we have a major economy that's going to explode in a downward way. We'll talk with economist Morgan Harper about that. It is time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, today is the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. Black people went through hell in order to make that a reality. And what is the result? Significant black voter turnout across the country. We have seen black elected officials elected, mayors, city council, state rep, state senate, governor, members of Congress, United States Senate, and even a president. We continue to see the battles of the 50s and 60s during Jim Crow play out present day, as right now Republicans are locked into a racist gerrymander in Texas. That's one of the reasons why 51 Texans have fled the state in order to keep the Texas House from having a quorum to being able to pass these racist gerrymandered maps. Joining us right now is Ron Reynolds, state representative out of Houston. He is the chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus. Also joining us on the show is one of his colleagues who is remaining steadfast in this fight, as many of them are, because this is, again, a very, very difficult situation, being away from their families. And so you have these members who literally are in Chicago, continuing the battle as well. Representative Bowers, we're glad to have all of y'all here. Thanks a lot. Ron, I want to start with you. Listen, this thing is real. In a moment, I'm going to talk to the Ambassador Andrew Young. They put their lives, they face death every day. And look, today, y'all have to deal with the reality of a death threat being called, a bomb threat being called into the hotel where you're staying there in Chicago. And so this is a battle that you're going to have to be in this for months. What are you saying to your caucus? What are other Democrats saying to keep their spirits up? Because we're talking about what potentially could be a 4, 5, or even 6-month process to keep Republicans from approving these racist gerrymandered maps.
Roland, it's great to be on with you, Frat, and it's so good to see you wearing the old black and old gold, because on this 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, it was our frat brother, Dr. Martin Luther King, and as you said, Ambassador Andrew Young, two great alpha men who were young soldiers on the battlefield with other freedom fighters that made good trouble so that they could push to end Jim Crow. And here we are in 2025. Retta and I and our colleagues are battling this racist gerrymandered map that would disenfranchise black and brown communities particularly, but African Americans will be hit fiercely hard in Houston and Dallas. And so we're here to stop this Trump-Abbott Texas takeover to push back, to make good trouble, to do everything we can to stop this. And we are here as long as it takes in order to stop it, Roland. We know that those who came before us, they made tremendous sacrifices. They risked it all. They were willing to put their lives on the lines through freedom rides, through lunch sit-ins. They were willing to march, knowing that they could be beaten, they could be killed, and many of them did pay the ultimate sacrifice. So here we are standing on the right side of history, pushing back against these MAGA racist extremists that are trying to take our country in the wrong direction, to hold on to the short, small Republican majority that's in the House of Representatives. We will not let them do this on our watch, Roland. So thank you for having us on. Let's continue to ring the alarm bell so people will wake up and they will take action and stand and fight.
State Rep Andrew Bowers, again, this seems like we are back in Jim Crow days, having to fight tooth and nail to protect basic rights. What you have here are Republicans who want to eradicate, completely get rid of these 5 districts, these 5 seats in order to achieve power, and they want to do it at the expense of black people, largely black people, but also Latinos.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Roland, thank you so much for having us. As Ron said, it's good to be on here with you all tonight, but that's certainly what they're trying to reduce us to. And this is a reduction of political power, especially, as you said, in the black community. Y'all know that I represent out of Dallas now, but I am homegrown in 3rd Ward in H-Town, and grew up in the 18th Congressional District. So it is a real racist, I don't want to call it a power grab, so I'm going to call it what it is. It's racism, and it is literally reducing us to a place where now it takes 4 votes for black people to be equivalent to one white vote, an Anglo vote. So they are reducing us down to 1/5. And it just reminds me of the I am a man and I am a woman, but it reminds me of that poem, I Am a Man. And I was just in the African American Museum in the nation's capital this year, and we know that it's a real rollback. The president is trying his best to take us all the way back and take every right that we've had away from us. So we're here, as you said, Roland, fighting, and I'm going to say we're ready to fight like hell. We've been here, and with the threats today, today's probably the first day in this quorum break that I felt a little bit uneasy. I can't even say a little bit, but we know that it happened, and we know that we're safe, and it's not going to deter us.
This is, and Representative Reynolds, again, explain to the audience, we've been saying it from day one, why we have to use the specific language by saying this is racist gerrymandering.
Well, Roland, we have to use that specific language because the U.S. Supreme Court has said that partisan gerrymandering is acceptable. That is okay if Republicans say, well, we just did it because we wanted to get more Republican seats. Well, the Supreme Court has said that's okay. But what you cannot do legally per the Voting Rights Act of 1965, Section 2, that is still in place because the rest of it was gutted, or else Texas couldn't have done this in the first place. But that's another story. But it says that they could not do it on the basis of race. Well, this is strictly on the basis of race. They are eviscerating black districts specifically. And for those who don't know, I know, Roland, you have so great audience because you're always educating them. But for those new listeners, Texas has more African Americans than any other state. If anything, we should be expanding African American representation, not reducing it. We're reducing it by 50%. So instead of having 4 African American seats, we're going to now have 2. Based on these maps.
Yes.
And so this is a direct racial affront, an attack on our black and brown communities, reminiscent, like you said, Roland, of the 1960s. And I want to remind people that if it wasn't for those freedom fighters, we would still be in those dark days. And President Trump, he is trying to take us back. He wants to roll back the clock. He's done it with rolling back through attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion. They want to take out the history books so you can't teach through critical race theory, so you can't teach about slavery. Like, they want to erase it from our existence. They want to erase us from having a seat at the table. So that is why we have to fight. We have to call out these racism when we see it, and we have to speak truth to power, and we have to be willing to fight, because our freedom and liberty is at stake, and they literally want to do everything they can to put us back as second-class citizens. And I'm not going to have it on our watch. And Roland, I want to thank you for always being willing to use your media platform when other mainstream media doesn't want to call it racist. They want to sugarcoat it and say, oh, it's just partisan politics. No, this is racism. This is racial gerrymandering, and that is what we are here to speak out against.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Bowers was interesting. The Republicans saying, "Oh no, we're creating, you know what, Republican districts for Hispanic." So they're now trying to pit Black against Latino in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And they know that Texas, right now, what we're 13% of the population is Black. They know that the Latino population continues to grow. And they would love to pit us against each other. We saw some terrible things happen in that last presidential election where, I hate to say it, Roland and Ron, you know this as well, but Black and brown men were voting against their better interest, against their best interest when it came to who their candidate of choice should have been. And so they would love to pit us against each other. They know that the minorities, they know they're outnumbered. And I guess, you know, what I really want to say is they knew that they would not win in 2026, so they decided they needed to steal something in 2025. That's where we are right now. And the best way for them to do it is to change the game, change the maps, and certainly to pit Black and brown people against each other.
All right, then. Representative Bowers, Representative Ron Reynolds, I appreciate both of you being with us. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Folks, going to go to a break. We come back. We're going to talk with Ambassador Andrew Young. He knows a whole lot about these battles when it comes to racism and politics. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
This week on The Other Side of Change.
Diaspora wars.
The internet has been swarmed. Who has a right to Blackness and Black culture? Who is overrepresented, underrepresented? It's too much. It's making us dizzy.
We don't have to be prideful without this air of superiority, right? All stories matter within this Black sphere that we exist in.
Only on The Other Side of Change on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. The United States is the most dangerous place for a woman to give birth among all industrialized nations on the planet. Think about that for a second. That's not all. Black women are 3 times more likely to die in this country during childbirth than white women.
These healthcare systems are inherently racist. There are a lot of white supremacist ideas and mythologies around Black women, Black women's bodies, even Black people, that we experience painless, right?
Activist, organizer, and fearless freedom fighter Monifa Akinwole-Bandele from Moms Rising joins us and tells us this shocking phenomenon, like so much else, is rooted in unadulterated racism. And that's just one of her fights. Monifa Bandele on the next Black Table here on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, Black Americans have 1/10 the wealth of their white counterparts. But how did we get here? It's a huge gap. Well, that's why we need to know the history and what we need to do to turn our income into wealth. Financial author and journalist Rodney Brooks joins us to tell us exactly what we need to do to achieve financial success.
You can't talk about why we are, as Black people, where we are, unless you talk about how we got here.
Bridging the Gap and Getting Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Paula J. Parker. Truly proud on the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder on Disney+. And you're watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
Folks, 60 years ago, President Lyndon Baines Johnson signed into law the Voting Rights Act that fundamentally changed voting for African Americans, especially in the South. Here is some of what he said on that historic day.
Even if we pass this bill, the battle will not be over. What happened in Selma is part of a far larger movement which reaches into every section and state of America. It is the effort of American Negroes to secure for themselves the full blessings of American life. Their cause must be our cause too, because it's not just Negroes, but really it's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome.
That's all right, folks. President Lyndon Baines Johnson, again, with the Voting Rights Act speak. Joining us right now is someone who put his life on the line in order to get that passed. Playing an integral role in getting that signed into law. Of course, former lieutenant of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He also member of Congress, mayor of Atlanta, ambassador to the United Nations, my elder brother Andrew Young. Ambassador Young, how you doing?
I'm doing fair to middling, as the old folks say.
Well, I was
I
was talking to some. Say it again.
I said I got no complaints. It's just it was nice and cool here yesterday, but it's back to 100 degrees almost today in Atlanta. So it's a hot time in the whole tonight.
So you're saying the temperatures is higher than your age, huh? You're 93 years old. You've seen a lot over these years, and you were right there in the middle of this battle to get the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, Fair Housing Act made law. What stands out the most for you, reflecting 60 years later after the president signed this historic bill?
Well, it's the way that the movement was really a spirit-led movement. that we came back from Martin received the Nobel Prize in Norway, and we came back and stopped by to meet President Johnson, and all he could say was he agreed with everything we wanted and we needed, but he closed every sentence with, "I'm sorry, I just don't have the power." And when we left there, he was suggesting that we just kind of take it easy, and maybe Dr. King, after having been through the Nobel Prize and been bombed and stabbed and everything else, said maybe he might take a few months off. And actually, that's sort of what I was thinking. But as we left the White House, Dr. King said, "No, we're going to have to get the president some power." And, you know, he was even shorter than me. And I said, "You Morehouse man or something else. You ain't got a pot to piss in. We broke." You know, because the Nobel Peace Prize was $60,000. But Martin decided we should divide it up with all 6 of the civil rights organizations, so we only got $10,000 apiece, and that was hardly enough to keep SCLC going for a month. But he understood that social change in America is a religious process as well as a political process. And what I didn't count on, and which he didn't know, but he was sort of counting on it, was that Mrs. Amelia Boynton from Selma. Now, he knew Selma, and I knew Selma because our wives came from Marion, Alabama, which is 30 miles away from Selma. So my wife and I had our first date in Selma. And everybody knew Mrs. Boynton. So when she came over to visit with us, she just told all of the hell that Democrats putting black folks in Selma. And Martin said, "Well, we'll be there with you right after Christmas." And then normally is the NAACP celebrates Emancipation Proclamation on the first of the year. And we said, "Well, we'll come over and we'll use that as an opportunity to break the injunction and start a movement in Selma." And 3 months later, in March, we had that Bloody Sunday, which we were going to march to from Selma to Montgomery because that's where Governor Wallace was. And we got the dates wrong because we said it was really confusing, but the first Sunday was when the preachers had to be in the pulpits, and that was the 7th of March, and so none of the preachers were there, but there were about 300 people that had come from all the counties around, and they brought their knapsacks with their water and their snacks and food, and there were 300 or 400 people there ready to march. And Dr. King said, "Can't you all hold them up till we get there?" And we said no, because it was a time difference between Selma and Atlanta, and they couldn't get there before evening, and we wanted to get the march through. So he said, "Well, go ahead and march. They're probably just going to turn you around anyway." And so that's what we decided to do. We didn't want everybody to go to jail because we thought everybody, and so John, Hosea Williams, James Bevel, and I all played odd man, flipped a coin. And it turned out to be John Lewis and Hosea Williams that led the line. And we thought they were going to just turn them around and let it go. But they were waiting on horseback, and they rode the horses into the crowd of nonviolent movement people who weren't even budging. They made no move. They were standing still, and the policemen, state troopers, drove the horses right at them and were beating everybody down with billy clubs. And that was a bloody Sunday. And it was bloody. But we recovered and were ready. There was a young white man killed after the march was over. He was in a black neighborhood, James Reeb.
Yeah, James Reeb, yeah.
Yeah, R-E-E-B. And he was an Episcopal priest, I think. And
yeah,
people jumped him coming out of a restaurant. And they beat him by himself. And we got him to the hospital, but it was too late. There were no hospitals around there that were open. You had to drive almost all the way to Birmingham, which was 90 miles.
Let me ask you this question. When it passes, we see massive black turnout. Bull Connor gone, Jim Clark gone, all these folks gone, and we see what happened, and now we're seeing the attacks. Now we're seeing the legal battles. Now we saw, of course, the Shelby v. Holder decision. We see right now Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act hanging by a thread. Clarence Thomas has made it clear that his mission in life is to get rid of the Voting Rights Act. When you see these attacks and how the right wants to completely eradicate it, that has to make you angry, because we know, and we've already seen the results. If the Voting Rights Act is invalidated, I mean, they are going to wipe out half of the Congressional Black Caucus.
Well, they'll have to fight to do it. And I'm impressed with the way Texas and California and New York are taking up this redistricting. When I first ran for Congress, they redistricted me out of Atlanta. I live in southwest Atlanta, but they took my house and my neighborhood and put it all the way down in Noonan, Georgia, which is 40 miles away. And of course, I lost that time. But we went back to the courts in the Fifth Circuit down here in Atlanta. We got the lines redrawn, and we had some really good people in the Georgia legislature who were black legislators, and they got into the process. And it's not just a few of us. This is a nationwide struggle. This is a struggle of a people. And we've usually found a way to come up with a miracle. And we certainly saw Lyndon Johnson, because we weren't sure about him. He had a really tough Southern accent from Texas. And we were all having hopes in Kennedy. But when Kennedy was struck down, Lyndon Johnson stepped in and did more and everything that we thought we could get John Kennedy to do. And we're grateful to what Lyndon Johnson did, because he was operating for the nation. But then we've had setbacks all over the nation, north and south. But we haven't stopped yet. And I don't know, I quote Dr. King, truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the on the throne. But the scaffold sways the future, because behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadows, keeping watch above his own. And we rely on those maxims and principles to say we're going to stay in this struggle till our last breath. And I mean, I've been out registering voters all over Georgia already, and we're just getting geared up, trying to keep our 2 Senate seats and the Congress, that we can add anybody from Georgia. Now that seems to be difficult.
Ambassador,
never know.
Right. To that point, Bishop William Barber sent something to me a week ago that, you know, when you read this, it sort of is extremely sad, if you will. He said that in the last election in November, some 600,000+ African Americans in North Carolina did not vote. He said, according to data, some 1 million Black Georgians did not vote.
Yeah.
What do you say? What do you say to an African American who sits elections out, and what must we say to them to get them to recognize that their vote absolutely does matter?
Well, they can see it in Atlanta. We've had 9 Black mayors in a row. I was the second one. Maynard Jackson was first. But we've had 9 in a row, and the city is growing. The schools, we have a Hope Scholarship where anybody that makes a B average on the SAT, B average and 1,000 or 1,200 on the SAT, can go to any Georgia college free. We have, it's 60% of the Atlanta population of our workforce has had some college training, and 23% of that has master's degrees. And we did that through a segregated school system, and just kept on keeping on. And so the more we make it, the more we make and the more we do, the easier it seems to get, and the more people begin to think that it's automatic. But none of my generation, and then not many of us left, none of us know that we can't take it for granted. When I ran for Congress, it poured down rain all day and all night on election day. And it didn't stop raining until 9 o'clock at night after the polls closed. But we had a 75% of the Black voters in Atlanta turned out. And that was the biggest turnout we'd ever had. And that's how I got into Congress. And my staff stayed together and didn't come to Washington with me. They stayed here and elected Maynard Jackson mayor in the next year. And then they came to Washington. And so there's nothing without a struggle. And we struggle too hard that we ought to be free by now.
Well, one of the things that it is a struggle, but one of the things that I was on a panel Saturday in Chicago. Janae Nelson of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund was on there as well. And she said a lot of people in this generation said this is the first time that we've had to face this level of attacks on our rights. But Ambassador, I remember something when we were engaged in, I'm here at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention. We're in Cleveland. I remember when I was last on the board and we were aggressively going after CNN for no Black executives direct reporting to Jeff Zucker. And I remember calling Bernard Shaw, and Bernard Shaw said, Roland, every generation has their moment. He said, it's your turn. And I think that's really the message. We have to understand that, hey, you talked about we should be free by now, but the reality is we're not, which means that this generation, Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, We got to be in this fight because at the end of the day, the battle today is for really a future of tomorrow.
That's exactly true. But you have to fight for it today to be around tomorrow, because they're trying to take away the rights we've accumulated already. And they don't make any. They're not ashamed, it seems. They want to reestablish slavery almost.
I wrote my book. Go ahead.
No, I said we're working together pretty well here in Atlanta, but again, we're surrounded by we're surrounded by the same people who've been here before. Now, we got together with most of the. I mean, I never got elected with just black votes into the Congress and nor to as mayor, and it was the black vote in Georgia that gave Jimmy Carter his chance to be president, and also Bill Clinton, and we have turned out politically, and we have made progress. The struggle continues, though. Nobody told us that the way would be.
You made a point. You made a point just moments ago where you said, "Go ahead." You said, "Go finish that thought."
Yeah, I said nobody told us that the way would be easy, but I don't believe he brought us this far to leave us. You know, that's I don't feel no ways tired. We've come too far from where we started from.
And you made a point moments ago where you said it seems like they want to take us back to slavery. What I said for months now is that this effort, they want to defund Black America. They want to completely destroy the infrastructure, the civil rights, the economic rights, the social justice, the political infrastructure that folks like you and so many other unsung heroes fought for. That's what they're trying to do right now.
Well, and they're wrong, and they won't be able to do it, because this economy is a strong economy in spite of the people that are trying to resegregate it or pick on folk or cut people out or take advantage of people every time they can get. But it's like how could you play in the NFL? How could the NFL have a football team without black folks? You know, I went down in Mobile where they were, Mobile's put up statues of Hank Aaron and Satchel Paige and 3 or 4 others. There are 5 black Mobilians that are in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And they embrace that, and they realize that that's an important part of keeping Mobile, Alabama, the city that it can be. And I don't know. I still go back to I don't feel no ways tired. I'm 93 years old, and I was tired when I came home today because this up and down weather with the heat and cold kind of got to me a little ways. But, you know, I'm here. And I don't feel tired.
Well, what I always say, Ambassador Young, as long as if you got breath in your body and you can still move, there's still some work you to do on our path to freedom.
Well, I kind of feel that way. You know, when in St. Augustine, Florida, which is where we had the last march before they passed the '64 Civil Rights Act, there are 2 young women who brought us down there. And one of them's They're all past 100 now, and they still driving. We have a number of people. The old civil rights fighters are all, retirement age, but nobody's stopping. And we keep on keeping on, opening doors for the younger generation and doing everything we can to help prepare the way for a brighter tomorrow.
Absolutely. Ambassador Andrew Young, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, my dear brother. Stay well, keep swinging, and I'm right there with you, giving folks hell and speaking truth and what we need in order to be on that path to be free one day.
All right. God bless you. And keep on keeping on.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Yes, sir. Will do. Well, thank you, sir. Tell the wife hello. Folks, that is Ambassador Andrew Young. Let me bring in right now my panelists. Glad to have them here. They've been holding for some time. We had to get with our various guests right there. And let's go right to them. Pull the panelists up, please. Pull them up, pull them up. All right, then, of course. Talik McMillan, glad to have you here on the show. One of our young panelists, young brother who is doing some good work. Glad to have him here. Like I say, folks, we've been, it has been quite the busy day as we here in Cleveland. We see all of the craziness going on. Let me also thank Andrew Clark, who's joined us as well. Managing partner, he is, of course, with the District Legal Group. Glad to have you both. Tyler, I want to start with you. I mean, to sit there and listen to 93-year-old Andrew Young still in the fight, trust me, people talk about my travel schedule. I swear that man travels more than I do, and not giving up. And I think what jumps out there was not losing faith in our ability to fight for freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a joy to be on Roland, but definitely hearing from Ambassador Young, I have had opportunity to sit and talk with him many times, and his wisdom and insight, I think it echoes through generations. And I think today, as we say, we are 60 years removed from the passage of the Voting Rights Act, and yet we are still fighting for these protections. We can't claim to be, the global standard of democracy and these standards of barriers, but yet voter suppression runs rampant right here in our home. I think it's very hypocritical for us as a nation to send diplomats to defend democracy overseas while we are closing polling places, purging voter rolls, and ignoring the erosion of civil rights here in our own country. And I think if democracy abroad is worth fighting for, it must be worth fighting for in Alabama, in Georgia, in Texas, and for the over 400,000 Washingtonians here in D.C. And I think that's what real patriotism means. And I think if we can't defend the basic freedom of protecting the right to vote, what can we protect? All the other, issues are on the line. And it's very important that we stand up and ensure that our rights are being protected.
Andrew, what it also says to anybody who was listening to Ambassador Young, you ain't got no damn excuse sitting your ass on the sidelines. What's happening in Texas, that is not just about right now. That is literally about the next generation of African Americans, the voting rights battle right now. And so when I listen to people talk about, oh, I'm tired, all this, no. Listen, go take a nap, go get some rest, but this is not a moment for us to be checking out of a process.
Yeah, and it really goes back to the beginning of this administration and the types of tactics that we saw them use in trying to rig elections. We saw them trying to rig judicial elections and influence those elections. Now they're trying to gerrymander out there in Texas. And kudos to all of the representatives in Texas who banded together and who are now safely in the great city of Chicago. Really, it's something that, especially 60 years ago, and the types of things that 60 years ago we saw people have to go through, not me, but at least the previous generation, and we've seen people have to go through. Now we're seeing similar things, and them talking about FBI warrants and arresting them and taking them back, and they're staying put. And I urge all of those representatives that we all support you throughout the country, so to stay strong and to keep doing what you're doing, because it's important, not just for Texas, but for the rest of the country, because if they're allowed to do this in a state like Texas, then all of these red states are going to follow suit. So kudos to them for doing this.
Absolutely. And so, hey, there's a lot of work to do, and people need to understand that. Hold tight 1 second, folks. We're going to go to a break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We'll be chatting with Morgan Harper, economist. Job numbers are in. Ooh, Trump is losing his mind because he is tanking the economy, and his tariffs are what's taking us down. We're going to talk about that with Morgan. Folks, don't forget to support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to be able to do the work that we do here at Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. Support our work by contributing to us, becoming a donor, joining our Bring the Funk fan club. The goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. If you want to do that, please, if you want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here on your screen, the Stripe QR code. Click the Cash App Pay button to contribute. You can also, of course, send a check or money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo, RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we're talking about leveling up, or to put it another way, living your very best life. How to take a bold step forward that'll rock your world.
Leveling up is different for everybody. I think we fall into this trap, which often gets us stuck because we're looking at someone else's level up journey, what leveling up means to them. For some, it might be a business venture. For some, it might be a relationship situation, but it's different for everybody.
It's all a part of A Balanced Life. That's next on Black Star Network.
This week on the other side of change.
Diaspora wars.
The internet has been swarmed. Who has a right to blackness and black culture? Who is overrepresented, underrepresented? It's too much. It's making us dizzy.
We don't have to be prideful without this air of superiority, right? All stories matter within this Black sphere that we exist in.
Only on the other side of change on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. I don't play Sammy, but I could. Or I don't play Obama, but I could. I don't do Stallone, but I could do all that. And I am here with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
Folks, imagine going to a lake in South Carolina on the 4th of July, and then you're planning a funeral. That is what happened to the family of 12-year-old Jason Carr, full of life, enjoying the day, swimming in Lake Murray in South Carolina. Yet 2 weeks later, he was dead due to a rare deadly brain infection. Now, doctors say Jason was infected by a brain-eating amoeba found in warm, fresh water. It enters through the nose and attacks the brain. His family had never even heard of it, and they said they had no idea the lake posed any danger. There were no signs, no warning, and no water testing. Now, Jason's parents are speaking out, determined to raise awareness to know the family have to go through what they are dealing with. Joining us now is Tyler Bailey, attorney for the Carr family and the civil rights advocate, as well as Jason's parents, Clarence and Ebony Carr. Clarence and Ebony, certainly our condolences. This is, I mean, look, we see this all the time. We see folks, they go swimming in lakes, they whitewater rafting, all tubing, things along those lines. And what were you told? What were you told that this body of water, does it have a history of this? Also, where you swam, was that city property, county property, private property, state property? Just give us the details of what happened here.
Well, it wasn't a specific private property. It was Lake Murray. That's a popular tourist attraction here in this city. It's always busy. It's always crowded. And again, the only thing he did was go swimming, hang out with his friends. They went fishing, boating, tubing, and after he came home a couple of days later, he complained about a headache. And we took him to the emergency room, and the doctors checked him out, drew samples. There was nothing showing up. Gave him a shot, went home. Day or two later, he complained about a headache again. Only this time, it was accompanied with vomiting. We took him back to the ER. They began antibiotics, and later on through the night, he started to spike a fever. They did some spinal tap testing, and the following day, it came back showing that he was infected with the amoeba.
Yeah, and Roland.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and Jason was just a star of a kid, one of a kind, 3-sport athlete, sang in a choir, played in the band, and had a whole future ahead of him. And unfortunately lost his life, as Clarence just said, tragically to his brain-eating amoeba. And Lake Murray is owned by Dominion Energy, but it's a huge lake. It covers 5 or so different counties. And unfortunately, with global warming and water temperatures, amoeba can turn deadly if waters are consistently over 80 degrees. And so what Clarence and Ebony have been doing is fighting for the legacy of their son and wanting to see some policy change. PSAs that warn people about the waters when they're consistently over 80 degrees and how the amoeba can turn deadly, asking that there be signs and warnings that would put people on notice of this, and also asking that the state allocate some funding to testing our fresh body waters during the summer months. Right now, the South Carolina tests the 120 so beaches that we have for deadly bacteria from May to essentially October, but no funding is allocated to the lakes where majority of residents spend their time during summer, as opposed to tourists who visit the beaches of South Carolina. And that's what the Carrs have been fighting for, raising awareness. And I'm sure Ebony would love to talk more about who Jason was, and Clarence would as well. But so far, since he's passed, they have been nonstop in raising awareness. And unfortunately, the state did nothing. There was no investigation from any state or county regulatory body of where Jason was, where he was infected. So we've been doing the work that the state should have done and the county should have done. They haven't. If the Carrs didn't speak out about this, nobody would have known where Jason was, what he was infected with, how he lost his life, and who he was. So we've been beating the pavement trying to get the word out. We appreciate you allowing this platform for that word to be further spread.
Yes, thank you.
Were there other families out there? I mean, as you said, this is a very popular area. So were there a lot of other people who were out there that day?
Yes, sir. The lake was very busy. You had people jet skiing, other people that were tubing, pulling on speedboats, pontoon boats, swimming. The lake was busy. It was a beautiful day. Everybody was on the water.
It was 4th of July week, so there were a lot of people on the lake this week.
This is, obviously an extremely tragic story. Since this incident, have signs been put up? Have warnings been put up at this lake?
Not to our knowledge, sir. Not even one phone call from any state agency offering condolences. Not one phone call.
Yeah, and Roland, since the cars have spoken out on this, there has been some comments from legislators saying that they're interested in looking at legislation to possibly change it. But as of right now, there have been no warnings placed out there. They're saying that this is a rare situation, but just to use your own pretty much judgment. But there hasn't been anything out there that said things like when these waters are over 80 degrees consistently, that the amoeba can be deadly, that these are found in fresh bodies of water. There has been nothing to put the public really on notice outside of the cars speaking on it and pushing for change. And we're optimistic that some change will come. But as of right now, we're coming towards the tail end of the summer. And hopefully by next summer and when people get back in the water, there will be some changes. But as of right now, there have been none. As Clarence said, nobody has reached out from South Carolina Department of Environmental Services, any other regulatory body who has authority over the lake, including Dominion Energy.
Well, we certainly hope. We hate the fact that your son had to die, but we certainly hope some changes are made to warn families, parents, children, and others about these dangerous swimming in these freshwater lakes and ponds. Thank all of you for being on today's show. Thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, going to a break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, Black Americans have 1/10 the wealth of their white counterparts. But how did we get here? It's a huge gap. Well, that's why we need to know the history and what we need to do to turn our income into wealth. Financial author and journalist Rodney Brooks joins us to tell us exactly what we need to do to achieve financial success.
You can't talk about why we are, as Black people, where we are, unless you talk about how we got here.
Bridging the Gap and Getting Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
This week on The Other Side of Change.
Diaspora wars. The internet has been swarmed. Who has a right to blackness and Black culture? Who is overrepresented, underrepresented? It's too much. It's making us dizzy.
We don't have to be prideful without this air of superiority, right? All stories matter within this Black sphere that we exist in.
Only on The Other Side of Change on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Carl Payne pretending to be Roland Martin. Holla!
You ain't got to wear black and gold every damn place, okay? Ooh, I'm an alpha, yay. All right, you're 58 years old. It's over.
And you are now watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable.
You got that right, Chris Spencer. I'm rocking the alpha gear. All right, folks. July jobs report. Donald Trump lost his mind. It showed significant revisions. This economy is tanking. His tariffs are causing massive problems. In fact, just today, Tyson Foods announced they're laying off 5,000 workers in Pennsylvania and Kansas as a result of these tariffs. We're seeing this happen more and more. We're seeing companies announce they're going to be raising prices. And so that's what we are facing. Now, again, Trump doesn't want to hear that. He's trying to suggest that, oh, his tariffs are fine, they're wonderful, and how they're just bringing in all this money. But the reality is it is causing prices to go up. When you look at his polling data, he is horrible on the numbers. Now, when we start talking about unemployment numbers, it rose. Black unemployment rose from 6.0 to 6.8%. It's at 7%. For black men, for spiking from 5.2 to 7.7. Black women dropped to 6.78. All of these things are happening. Morgan Harper is the Director of Policy and Advocacy of the American Economic Liberties Project, and she joins us right now. Morgan, always glad to have you on the show. I mean, look, here's what I think happened here, Morgan. We saw Trump comes in, inaugurated January 20th. So immediate tariffs. Companies like, okay, all right, we're going to bite the bullet. Okay, so we're going to suck it up. All right, so February, March, April, May. All of a sudden, they like, we can't keep eating this. Now you begin to see companies, Procter & Gamble's and others announce, yeah, we're going to start increasing our prices because the tariffs are real. Senator Rand Paul, Republican, he keeps saying it's a tax. It's a tax. And so it is tanking the economy, pure and simple.
Yeah, I mean, the main point with the tariffs, or the way that Trump has approached the tariffs, is that they are not being done in any sort of strategic way. It's completely unpredictable. He's changing his mind month to month, sometimes week to week, sometimes day to day. And so it's impossible for companies, even companies that say want to do the right thing and actually make a plan for themselves and a business plan, economic plan, just taking in all the data and trying to do right by their employees and run a good company. It would be challenging to do that. But I do think we also need to be real about the fact that a lot of companies are using this uncertainty as cover to do things that they might have also wanted to do anyway. You know, they wanted to be able to shed some of the employees. Their main responsibility is to make sure that their stock prices keep going up. As long as they still are, making their profits, then they're going to do that. But there's no denying that the way that Trump has approached tariffs by, again, doing it in an unpredictable way and also not pairing it with any sort of domestic investment plan. I want to come to the Apple example, but just that there is no subbing in for domestic manufacturing. What are we seeing? Quite the opposite, actually. From this latest jobs data, it's another month where we're seeing a loss of manufacturing jobs. We're seeing a decline in the industries that actually produce goods. Where's the only source of growth, job growth in the economy right now? It's coming from healthcare and social assistance. Well, that is not an economic boom. You can't build a whole economy around people getting sick. Now, we have a lot of companies that are making a lot of money off of how sick we might be getting, but that is not enough to sustain the type of growth that we have been seeing for the past few years. And so this was a jobs report that really, I agree with you, Roland, really started to show in very stark terms, because we spotted over the last couple of months some of these indicators as like, okay, jobs are going up, but there's these other indications of all is not well with the labor market. But this was very, very clear. One, correcting what the numbers were from the past couple of months to show the reality that in some cases we only saw 10,000, between 10 and 20,000 jobs being created per month, down from estimates of over 100,000. And again, that the types of jobs that are being created have nothing to do with the promises that this administration has been making to bring manufacturing back to the U.S.
And they've been lying. Oh, manufacturing's up. It's up. Like, stop it, y'all. I love that video of the white man in Montana who was touting he voted for Trump. Now he's posting videos showing that, oh, yeah, dude, although your product is made in America, The parts that you get come from overseas. As a result, boom, tariff tax.
Yeah, and this is the other dynamic that's at play. And so I'll bring it back to the Apple example because, so for example, like Trump announced today he's going to raise the tariffs on India. Well, there's a scenario where you're doing that. And because a company like Apple does manufacture a lot of their products, a lot of the iPhones that many of us might use in India, that is going to change their calculus as a company. Can we continue to afford to manufacture things in India? Is it going to be better for us? I'm not saying that was where they would have landed, that they would move manufacturing immediately back to the U.S., but it would at least force the conversation. What we're actually hearing from these deals is that Apple's going to be subject to a whole different tariff regime, that they're not even necessarily going to have to play by the same rules as every other company in the economy that might actually have to pay those new higher tariffs if they are manufacturing goods in India. So this is another example of a dynamic that we're seeing from this administration is it's not deals with countries that are bringing our manufacturing back. It's deals between companies in this administration for the administration to get whatever they want and the company to get for whatever they want. So yes, Apple has made this announcement that they're going to be putting money into U.S. manufacturing, but I don't think anyone's under any illusion that this is a significant change in how Apple is going to be producing a lot of their products, which will continue to be almost entirely produced overseas.
Bring in my panel here. Andrew, question for Morgan.
Yes, Morgan. So how do you see the impact of the tariffs affecting the long-term growth of the economy as a whole? Here in Washington, D.C., we're seeing a sharp decline and, sharp increase in restaurant prices and a sharp decline in new restaurants opening. How do you see that affecting the overall economy, not just in manufacturing?
Yeah, I mean, the way that these tariffs are being done is going to have likely very negative effects on the economy. And to your point, we're already starting to see that. And this is something that we've discussed, over these last couple of months, that small businesses are going to have to retract in particular. It is just not going to be a time where most businesses are going to feel comfortable making any sort of expansion moves or hiring more people or, we're going to test out this new product. No, because ultimately the costs of whatever new product you're trying have probably gone up. And there is no alternative supply that is going to be cheaper. And so I think we are going to continue. And this was actually one of the really interesting things from last week, because, I don't know if you saw this, Andrew, but I think it was Wednesday or so, a lot of the business press was just like, they were so excited, like heralding, we've got GDP growth. Everybody said that Trump was taking the economy, but look, GDP is up. So all those people were wrong, kind of F them. We made money. Cool. What was really going on there? It was that a lot of companies at the beginning of the administration were bringing in a lot of imports. As those imports were going down over the last month or so because of the impact of tariffs and people not feeling as comfortable bringing goods in from other places, then the way that GDP is calculated, that was almost artificially making it seem like GDP was going up. But it was just because we had this very unusual behavior due to the tariffs and how people were importing. And so it only took one more day after all the business press was like, Trump's on it. We've got great GDP growth. Everybody was worried that the economy was going to be going down. And then we get these job numbers that, like I was saying, were just a really clear sign that for most of the businesses in our economy, this is really, really bad. And as businesses are hit, then workers are hit. And then ultimately, all of us as consumers are going to see things like increased prices. Not just increased prices, also the lack of availability of goods. And I'm hearing from this from people already in my network. I don't know if you are too, where you try to order something and then you get a response from the business, especially if it's a somewhat smaller business. Oh, we just don't have that anymore. We don't know when we're going to have it again because companies are not able to really predict how much longer they're going to be able to produce the goods that they have been able to put together over the last couple of years, or whether or not that's going to be feasible for them just from a money perspective based on the increased costs.
Tyler?
Yes, thank you again. And so they throw on the paper numbers at us, but folks' lived experience for many of us tell a different story. As we know, wages can't keep up with inflation. Housing is unaffordable. Medication is unaffordable. Student debt remains crushing. So we can't celebrate these statistics on paper while people are choosing between rent, medicine, and groceries. What does the job reports miss when it comes to Black and the younger workforce, and how might the proposed tariffs hike affect working class Americans and particularly Black and brown communities?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think this is one of the issues that came up in Trump's response to this job report data is, he decided he wanted to fire the person who leads the agency because he didn't like the numbers, which, that's ridiculous. But there is a real question to be had, or a question to be answered over the quality of the data. Is it reflective of businesses in the Black community? Are we getting enough of the indicators of how young people are experiencing what's happening in the economy? There's been a way of collecting this data over a very long period of time. It involves getting survey responses from businesses. And is that going to be enough moving forward to give us an accurate picture of what the economy is looking like, especially in this highly unpredictable environment? I think the answer for a lot of people, whether you're expert or a person out there just observing what's going on, is no, that maybe we do need to think about different ways in which we are tracking what's happening, especially, again, in this environment where we have, it seems very clear, an administration that is not very focused on making sure that we're getting accurate data. And it's just so much volatility. And so, that's where I really encourage all of us to embrace that we are, and to your point, we are the expert in our own experience. We know what we are seeing when we go to the grocery store. We need to be posting about that. We need to be posting about that as we're young people. Well, I'm pointing to you. I'm like on the borderline, I think, of being young. But, young people, business owners, consumers, all of it, it's like we got to get our stories out there, because I don't think that we can rely on the government reporting, even in an environment where we didn't have Trump, to be totally accurate, again, just given how unpredictable the policy making is right now. So we've got to get getting out there and making sure that we're telling our own story.
Right there. I mean, the bottom line is he fires the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics because he doesn't like the numbers, but he liked the numbers when they made him look good. And so I don't see how we can trust any numbers coming out every month, because Trump can order them to rig them.
Yeah, I mean, now that we've gotten rid of the person who was bipartisan, confirmed by the Senate, who was also confirmed by, a Senator J.D. Vance, right, who, like, current vice president pick from Donald Trump himself, he supported the person who was leading this agency with the labor statistics. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you're right, Roland. Last month I was pushing back on you a little bit because, suggesting something funny was going on with the numbers beyond just the normal adjustment. I stand by my push.
Yeah, you were, and I was like, okay, I don't trust these people.
I stand by, but I think I do think that what just happened actually is probably so we don't know what everything is going on in this administration, of course, but it does seem like this was evidence that, to your point, whatever was happening before they were cool with. As soon as it went against their way, and these were negative numbers, they're like, "Oh, we got to get you out of here." And so, to me, that actually is somewhat persuasive that what we just saw about July is probably accurate, and they don't know what to do about it, and they don't like it. Now it's very clear that it's out there, and so they're just trying to eliminate what they view as the problem, which is someone who is actually trying to do their job. So yeah, where we go?
Yeah, that which is what they're good at. Oh, let's get rid of the bad news so we can lie to people, and he can keep saying, "Oh no, that's fake news. It's great. It's wonderful. It's amazing. It's unbelievable. The greatest number, the biggest number ever." Right.
But here's the point, and this is also why there's sometimes this lag, or we have to have these corrections. Is yes, there's the technical survey, science, and blah blah blah. But what is this? This is businesses that are reporting what their experience is in the economy. This is households reporting what their experience is in the economy. That is the data that feeds up into these numbers. Turns out, what are all of us living out here either as consumers buying things or as people working at businesses and as employees getting laid off, hopefully not, but it clearly is happening at a lot of companies right now, or running our own business. And so again, we have to be very, very upfront and loud about what the truth is, what is really what are the real economic impacts of all of this insanity that is happening in Washington. And that's for all of us, no matter where you're living, to really show those true stories so that we can counteract all of the hype that undoubtedly they're going to try to be pushing, and that's not based in reality.
So the twice impeached, criminally convicted con man in chief Donald Trump goes on CNBC, says a bunch of whack, crazy, outlandish shit. This was the most racist thing he said, and national media act like, no big deal.
Back to their country with a pass back in legally, and we're doing things that are very difficult to do and very complex, but it works really well. We're sending them back, and then they're schooling, they're learning, they're coming in legally. We have a lot of that going on, but we're taking care of our farmers. We can't let our farmers not have anybody, these people, you can't replace them very easily. People that live in the inner city are not doing that work. They're just not doing that work. And they've tried, we've tried, everybody tried. They don't do it. These people do it naturally. I said, what happens if they get it to a farmer the other day? What happens if they get a bad back? He said, they don't get a bad back, sir, because if they get a bad back, they die. I said, that's interesting, isn't it? These are very, in many ways, they're very, very special people. Okay, go ahead.
No, okay, so.
I mean, I don't even know where to.
Morgan, he sounded like a plantation owner describing people of African descent who were enslaved.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that interview happened. I mean, let's just take a step back, that the president of the United States is calling in to a morning cable show to give his thoughts and updates on the economy. Like, that alone, when I first saw that they were tweeting out that interview was happening the night before, I thought it was a joke. I thought, someone just created a meme or something. That was real. That's crazy in and of itself. Talking about who might be the next president of the Fed just randomly at 8 a.m. on whatever day of the week that was. But yeah, he has no respect for the humanity. I mean, to think that people are voluntarily wanting to work these jobs is no, these are people that have fled wherever they're from. And we're talking about a lot of the agricultural workers. And this is their only means of supporting themselves and their family. And now the reason that many of them are not working is because they are terrified that this administration is going to capture them and send them to whatever country they decide they want them to go to, regardless of where they may or may not be from, or if they're here legally or not, or if they've committed a crime or not. Crazy. Suggesting that people in the inner city gave it a shot, but it didn't work. We know what that's code for too. So this is, it's so beyond comprehension that this is, again, where we find ourselves as a country dealing with this. But again, the main point is, this guy is not solving problems. He's creating problems, not just for Black people, but for these very farmers that he claims he cares so much about. They are not going to be able to sustain these businesses. Talk about, back to Andrew's question, impacts on all of us. Farmers can't do their job. Food prices go up. It's already happening. People are posting pictures about how much more they're paying from now compared to 2022. It's and then add on to all of that, the federal cuts that are happening, the most vulnerable. This is a ticking time bomb, and it really is just a matter of time before it starts to explode for absolutely everybody.
Tyler, again, mainstream media, no big deal. Okay, whatever. But that was an absolutely racist comment by racist Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely, Roland. I think it's no surprise of his comments, and I think he just continues to double down on his rhetoric, and that kind of just speaks to the person that he is and how he thinks about migrant workers, and also how he thinks about Black workers and working in the fields. And I think it's despicable, and we know the occupant we got in office. As you said on your T-shirt, F around and find out.
Andrew. Andrew, I don't know how anybody. Again, for the folk who think we're just joking, hold up. I'm gonna play it again. I want people to actually just listen to the virulent racism in the comment. I mean, they don't injure their backs. Guys, play it again. Play it again.
Back to their country with a pass back in legally, and we're doing things that are very difficult to do and very complex, but it works really well. We're sending them back, and then they're schooling, they're learning, they're coming in legally. We have a lot of that going on, but we're taking care of our farmers. We can't let our farmers not have anybody, these people, you can't replace them very easily. People that live in the inner city are not doing that work. They're just not doing that work. And they've tried, we've tried, everybody tried. They don't do it. These people do it naturally. I said, what happens if they get it to a farmer the other day? What happens if they get a bad back? He said, they don't get a bad back, sir, because if they get a bad back, they die. I said, that's interesting, isn't it? These are very, in many ways, they're very, very special people. Okay, go ahead.
No, okay. So,
was he suggesting that if they got a bad back, that they would take them out back like a horse and kill them? I mean, that clip, I've heard a lot of clips from Donald Trump, and that clip is the most baffling. And a lot of people are talking about the Epstein files and releasing the Epstein files, but him saying things like this and still being able to remain president is just so beyond comprehension, Roland. I think we're all just at a loss of words on how to describe the hate that he's spewing in his words for certain types of people, not only just migrant workers, but also Black people, referring to the inner cities, right? Because he thinks that all Black people live in the inner cities, and saying that we tried that with them and it just didn't work out. I mean, oh my goodness, that has got to be the top 5 worst clips I've ever heard from our unfortunate president.
It's crazy. And Morgan, the anchors on CNBC. Oh, okay. All right, sure. What's for lunch?
Yeah, the fact that they didn't interrupt him should be some kind of journalistic malpractice. And here's the other main point I would say is, he's like, no one else wants to do these jobs. Why do a lot of farms have to, and by the way, a lot of these aren't like independent family farms. We're talking about big ag. We're talking about a lot of big companies. Why do they have to rely on undocumented workers? Because they don't want to pay people a lot, because they don't want to have to give benefits. And so why do a lot more Americans not work these jobs? Because they're not actually trying to offer good jobs to people, right? And so, he's right about one thing, though. The whole system will crumble without the labor of a lot of immigrants in the agricultural industry. That's about the only thing that he got there. But the rest of it was just wrapped up in racism and a real disregard for the humanity of millions of people in this country.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. Morgan, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me, Roland.
All right, folks, when we come back, Trump wants to figure out new ways to make money. Hey, sure, let's charge Africans who are coming into America. I'll explain next. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Station.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. The United States is the most dangerous place for a woman to give birth among all industrialized nations on the planet. Think about that for a second. That's not all. Black women are 3 times more likely to die in this country during childbirth than white women.
These healthcare systems are inherently racist.
There are a lot of white supremacist ideas and mythologies around Black women's bodies, even Black people, that we experience painless, right?
Activist, organizer, and fearless freedom fighter Monifa Akinwole Bandele from Moms Rising joins us and tells us this shocking phenomenon, like so much else, is rooted in unadulterated racism. And that's just one of her fights. Monifa Bandele on the next Black Table here on the Black Star Network.
This week on the other side of change,
diaspora wars. The internet has been swarmed. Who has a right to Blackness and Black culture? Who is overrepresented, underrepresented? It's too much. It's making us dizzy.
We don't have to be prideful without this air of superiority, right? All stories matter within this Black sphere that we exist in.
Only on the other side of change on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Jo Marie Payton, voice of Sugar Mama on Disney's Louder and Prouder Disney Plus, and I'm with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
Well, folks, of course, we know Trump can't stand Black people. He surely can't stand Africans. And so now what they are trying to do is, if you're from Zambia or Malawi, if you are a tourist or a business traveler, and you're coming to the United States, they want you to pay a $15,000 visa bond when applying for U.S. visas. Now, the State Department says this bond doesn't guarantee visa approval and will be refunded if certain conditions are met. It comes alongside a new $250 visa integrity fee for foreign visitors, separate from visa costs. But neither Zambia nor Malawi has high visa overstay rates or travel bans. However, travel to the U.S. is expected to get tougher for many more African countries under this administration. So, is that where we are, Andrew? Let's just tax the Africans.
Yeah, that is a great way to deter people from coming to the United States if they are of a certain social economic class. I know there are a lot of wealthy Africans, but there are even more Africans that are not wealthy and cannot afford a $15,000 bond. There are a lot of Americans that cannot afford a $15,000 bond. So to say that someone coming from a different country needs to pay $15,000 just to fill out applications for the possibility of coming here, at that point, they might as well just go to England.
Tyler? You're on mute. You're on mute. Tyler, you're on mute. You're mute, Tyler. You're talking, but your mute button is on. Tyler, you're on mute.
I'm here. My fault.
We ain't hear nothing you just said. Oh, Lord, see.
I think it sends a strong message to the African nations that their citizens are to be treated with suspicion and not respect. I think it's a racist, double standard, because we don't see this same thing happening in other European countries. And I don't think it's by coincidence, but I think it's really rooted in outdated colonial thinking that treat African visitors as economic risks rather than global citizens, which they are. And I think this also, it continues to widen the gap between the global South and America. And I think it makes it really tough for diplomacy, especially as we're trying to increase and make the relations better between Africa and America, the African nations and America.
Absolutely. All right, folks. I love me a good town hall, and boy, did that happen in Nebraska with Congressman Mike Flood, and his constituents were not happy with him. They were lighting him up with questions. Roll the video.
Congressman Flood, I come from 11 generations of military citizens who have served this nation. I've seen the long-term effects of service on veterans' health and on well-being. This budget reconciliation bill that you support threatens to cut all of their benefits and support programs that go along with that. How can you stand behind this bill that erodes the very services that people like me, my family, our families, and younger vets coming home today rely on to live decent, healthy lives?
Well, first of all, thank you for your service to the country, and thank you to the generations of service to the country.
Please,
at my first town hall, I had the opportunity to. At the first town hall, the main issue that I took away from that was concerns about veterans' benefits, not only in the proposed bill, but just with the new secretary coming in. I met personally with the Veterans Secretary. We went over everything, and I will tell you, our Veterans Affairs are going to be better than they've been in a long time under this president. The Secretary, we sat down for the better part of an hour, and I would have to get my notes from that meeting, but I asked a lot of questions that came from that Columbus town hall. And when the time is right, and I have that in front of me, I will go through that. But I truly believe that number one, our veterans served our country. They were made a promise that we will provide their health care. I have a record of supporting, as a member of the legislature, our state veterans homes, and I have a record in our Congress of supporting veterans, and I will be happy to get more information from the Secretary. If you have specific programs you're concerned about, please reach out to Taylor and get us that information. Thank you.
My question is fiscal. With 450 million FEMA dollars being reallocated to open Alligator Alcatraz and 600 million taxpayer FEMA dollars being used to now open more concentration camps and ICE burning through $8.4 million a day to illegally detain people, how much does it cost for fascism? How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
Americans went to the polls in November, and they had a choice between a Democratic candidate that had an open border, no enforcement, fentanyl, drugs, human trafficking. And they had a choice between that and a candidate that said, close the border, get illegal immigrants out of our country, stop the fentanyl, stop the human trafficking, stop the drugs, stop the crime, stop the violence. That's what Americans voted for. Americans voted for a border that is secure. And I support the president enforcing our immigration laws, which, by the way, were written by Congress.
Okay. So how can you justify taking health care away from 78,000 Nebraskans?
As I explained before, when you have an additional $700 million coming into the state of Nebraska for Nebraska hospitals, we have a state where our infrastructure is going to be supported, is going to be funded, and is going to be available for the people that need it. If you are able to work and you're 28 years old and you choose not to work, you don't get free health care in America. If you are in this country illegally, you do not get free health care in America.
Saying that silence is complicity. Your silence tells us that you have no problem with the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The pardoning of all those involved, the big lie about the 2020 election with absolutely no evidence. These are all markers. These are markers of fascism. I have read a dozen or so books on authoritarianism and fascism. You said in Seward that you were not a fascist. Your complicity says otherwise. Have you ever spoken out against this administration and its Project 2025, which is a fascist machine? Have you ever spoken out? There are a number of people, it's been reported many times in the news that there are a number of our colleagues, Republican colleagues, who do not like this man and they speak against him. behind closed doors in private. Maybe you're one of them. There is a thing, profiles encourage. Why don't any of you, because you know better, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Sir, I want to be very clear with you. Give me a chance to answer his question, I'd be happy to. Fascists don't hold town halls with open question and answer series. And I will tell you this, I support law enforcement, and what happened on January 6, 2021 was not right, and I'm on the record saying so. I'm sure you can Google it, but I support law enforcement. I have prided myself on supporting law enforcement since I began as a member of the Judiciary Committee in 2005, and we started working on child sexual assault. We started working on the sex offender registry. We started working on all of these different DWI laws to make our streets safer. I believe in law enforcement. I believe in the rule of law. I believe in the rule of law. It matters to me. We have a lot of people that need to know when I see something that I don't agree with, I don't run to the TV station as my first stop. I try to stop it before it gets worse. I try to stand up and go to work to represent the people that I have in this district. And sir, I believe in law enforcement. Thank you.
I believe in fair taxation, but I disagree with personally benefiting at the expense of lower-income Nebraska citizens. Trump is a pathological liar, and citizens can't believe a word that comes from the convicted felon's mouth. Keeping Nebraska in mind, what actions are you going to support or initiate that will provide health care and food assistance for low-income families, protect Medicare, not increase the national debt, unmask the ICE terrorists, close alligator Auschwitz, and impeach Trump if he pardons Ghislaine Maxwell?
We protected Medicaid and saved taxpayers millions of dollars from waste, fraud, and abuse. This program, over the long term, will spend way too much money that we cannot afford if we don't protect it for those that need it. There are vulnerable people that need Medicaid. There are pregnant women that need Medicaid. There are folks that need to be in a nursing home that need Medicaid. We need to figure out how to keep more people in their home receiving care because we can't afford everybody going to the nursing home. So, sir, we, in my opinion, as your representative, with the $700 million coming into the state, the $50 billion rural hospital fund that we worked on, and the common sense protections of requiring people to work if they want free health care, and no illegal immigrants getting health care for free, I think that's entirely reasonable.
Yes. How are farmers supposed to survive as a result of this budget bill?
Well, I'll tell you what, and I actually have this number right here. We actually, and it was in one of my slides, 1 year ago, almost to this day, we were at the State Chamber fly-in, and I was the first in our congressional delegation to sound the alarm about the farm economy. I've been talking to community bankers across this state that are worried that a lot of our producers, with corn at $3.80 a bushel and soybeans down from what they should be and higher inputs, are going to have trouble making their payments. And I started to talking to local bankers about what this year's operational notes renewal would be. We made it. We made it through that. Actually, that's not true. I'll talk to you about that in a second. In December, we provided $10 billion in economic aid to America's farmers, mostly for the American Southeast, Georgia, Mississippi, those states. I tell you what, though, I am worried about next year for our farmers and ranchers. I am worried about it. And let me tell you a couple of things that we did do. We put a $59 billion increase for the Ag Safety Net programs, which is a $9 billion increase over the prior fiscal year. And you're not going to like this next part, some of you, but President Biden did no trade deals in 4 years. He did not stand up for Nebraska farmers when it came to white corn and the ban from the Mexican president's wife. Farmers and ranchers in this state are going to get a far better deal from Donald Trump's trade negotiations than we ever got under President Biden. And this is the only way to improve our chances to grow our farm income.
What specific action are you taking to defund or continued support to Israel and their aggressions on the West Bank and genocide against Palestinians living in Gaza?
I have said from the start, what happened on October 8th was an abomination. Well, October 7th, sorry. I support Israel. America has no better ally than Israel. And they have every right to root out Hamas and these evil terrorists, whether they're in Gaza, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's the Houthis, whether it's the Iranians. They live under threat of nuclear and vicious attack every single day. I also believe that our country, working with Israel, needs to do everything we can to get those children food. No American wants any child, no matter the place they live, to ever suffer. But you got to remember, we're dealing with Hamas. They use these Palestinians as human shields in their pursuit of terror and destruction against Israelis. So I support Israel. I support Israel. I support Israel.
Next question.
Yes, first of all, I'd ask you please not to refer it to that monstrosity as the big, beautiful bill.
It's the name of the bill, though.
We know better. We know better. My question concerns veterans. Again, I asked you in March about cuts for veterans, cuts that will hurt veterans. I didn't really find your answer to the gentleman earlier adequate. How are cuts to the VA going to improve VA services? Also, what about the thousands of veterans who have lost their federal positions? And what about how that big, ugly bill, let me finish. How about how that big, ugly bill is going to disproportionately affect veterans who need SNAP and other benefits? Finally, what about the veterans who are seeing family members who have done nothing wrong being picked up by masked ICE agents?
Okay, so first of all,
my question
to
is
your
this.
first point there,
When are
the
you
bill
gonna
is actually
stand
called
up?
the One Big Beautiful Bill, and I'm not going to tiptoe around what the answers are because that's the bill that passed. And when President Biden passed the Inflation Reduction Act, that's what we called it, even though it did the opposite. As it relates to the VA cuts, what specific cut are you talking about so I can understand? Give me a specific example.
It is specifically general cuts in the VA's overall budget. I want to know, when are you going to stand up to the bully in chief and his disrespectful, un-American, cruel cuts that hurt our veterans?
See, this issue came up in Columbus in May. And I went to the Veterans Secretary. And the system, when we're done, will be better for veterans, it will be more efficient, and we'll have better services. I am confident of that. You cannot cite a specific program because I went to him specifically and said, show me where these cuts are. We went through it. I've got the data. I've got the notes. I've got all the information I need. And I will be very public about showing you what is happening with veterans as soon as I get the opportunity to avail myself of my notes. But I am very confident President Trump this Congress, the Veterans Administration, we are working hard for veterans, and we will deliver for veterans. We are protecting veterans, we are protecting Medicaid, we are getting results, and we are pursuing growth. That is what's happening right now. Protection, results, and growth. Thank you.
Well, that boy was lying, and you said he would lighten his ass up. Here is Congressman Don Bacon on CNN laying out how the economy in Nebraska is screwed because of Donald Trump.
And I would just say, from my vantage point here in Nebraska, we're seeing a bit of a troubled economic mess, or right now it's a troubled time. And I'll say, in Nebraska, the GDP here has decreased by 6% over the last year, and it's all about trade. It's all about getting corn and soybeans out the door. So what I hear with a weak jobs numbers, well, we're sort of seeing that in Nebraska right now.
So isn't that quite interesting, Tyler? Here you have Don Bacon, Congressman Don Bacon, representing Omaha, admitting they're screwed. The governor previously called Donald Trump because guess what? Those ICE arrests were taking all of those migrant workers out of Nebraska. Those farmers getting screwed. Oh, by the way, Nebraska voted for Trump. Just like Las Vegas is a ghost town, they are down huge numbers because a lot of those international tourists ain't coming. Nevada, you also FAFO because y'all voted for Trump as well. They're getting what they deserve because they're getting what they voted for.
Absolutely. I just said F around and you find out. I think the backlash in Nebraska reminds us that even in deep red communities that they're not monolithic and they're waking up to the extremists and the hypocrisy that they're seeing from far right politics. I don't think this just wasn't about disagreeing with policy on many issues that I totally agree with them. I'm glad they brought up what's happening in Gaza and how children are starving. But it's about standing up for our communities and standing up and saying enough is enough to the politics that don't agree with our basic needs. I think when we see moments like this where voters disrupt the status quo, it signals a hope that the tide is shifting and is shifting towards accountability and real representation, because we don't see that happening in Washington today. And we're seeing that people aren't afraid to challenge power face to face. And that's and I think that's a powerful sign of democratic engagement. And I hope that it lies in this, continues in this cycle of resistance. And I think it's a good sign. It's a good sign that conservatives are reaching their breaking point. But my hope is that when the ballot box comes about in midterm elections, that we can see a tie where we can see our true values be reflected in Congress.
Andrew.
Roland, you have been working hard, and it seems like the tide is changing. When I see people with U.S. Army hats on yelling at their Republican leaders that they elected into office about the policies that are now starting to affect them in their neighborhood. Because when they elected these people, they didn't think that it was going to affect them. They thought it was just going to affect people that look like us. Now it's starting to hit home. Now these farmers are starting to see the issues out in Nebraska now. Now they're affected. Now when I see this, that tells me that 2026, I'm hoping, and I love that you're shedding light on this, because I think 2026, that we're going to see a change. There's way too much happening, and it's not just about minorities that are being affected. It is all Americans now. And I think that we all need to be banding together to affect change and bring in some new leadership. I mean, the one lady had a shirt on that said, "Go fact yourself." That's how upset she is, that she went online to buy that shirt, knowing that she's going on this town hall to talk to Representative Flood. So the tide is changing, and I'm very happy to see this. And that's a kudos to the hard work that people just like you, Roland, are doing. So thank you so much, day in and day out, for fighting the system. And we have a long road ahead of us, but a clip like that shows that even in a place like Nebraska, which we felt like we had no shot in, that in 2026, I feel like the tide is going to be changing. People are fed up.
Yep, absolutely. All right, gents, last story. BET has announced that the Soul Train and the BET Hip Hop Awards are being indefinitely canceled amid rating decline and the shift in streaming. Scott Mills, the CEO of BET, said to Billboard, explained the network's decision, said they're not canceling the awards permanently, but may shift to different platforms. Now, according to Pew, 83% of Americans use streaming services rather than cable TV. Cord cutting is real, but also don't think for a second that the attacks on DEI is not playing a part of this, because a lot of those sponsors are no longer supporting Black content. All right, folks, that is it for us. Tylik, Andrew, thanks for being on today's panel. I certainly appreciate it, folks. I'm here in Cleveland for 50th anniversary of the National Association of Black Journalists Convention. Lots going on here. We're doing our part. Of course, I'm running for office, Vice President Digital. So if you're an NABJ member, you can cast your ballot. You can vote online until Friday. Everything closes at 5 o'clock on Friday. So we look forward to, of course, y'all voting. So be sure to mark Aaron Haynes for President, Raylyn Johnson, Vice President Broadcast, and, of course, me for Vice President Digital. Folks, tomorrow, Omekongo is going to be sitting in for me. I'll be speaking at the same time to African-Americans in Philanthropy in Chicago, and so look forward to that. But I'll be back right here on Friday. So lots going on, and, of course, we are all on top of this whole deal. All right, folks, don't forget, support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars are critically important for us to do the work that we do, supporting the show, supporting the network. If you want to give me a Cash App, do so right now. Here's the Cash App. Use the Stripe QR code. Click the Cash App pay button to contribute. You can also use this code for credit cards. Checks and money order. Make it payable to P.O. Box. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal's R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get my copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. Don't forget to get our Black Star Network swag, Roland Martin Unfiltered swag. Go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, shopblackstarnetwork.com. Support our Black-owned products as well. At shopblackstarnetwork.com in our marketplace. And if you want to invest in Fanbase, first of all, download the app. And, of course, if you want to invest as well, go to startengine.com/fanbase, startengine.com/fanbase. Folks, that's it. I'll see y'all right here. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.